Hello everyone, Joseph Hadid here for Worldwide Sport Updates, your podcast, your news, your local community, and let's recap the long week we just had. First and foremost, let's start first with some college football news. Penn State and James Franklin ink a 10-year contract extension. James Franklin, folks, isn't going anywhere. Penn State agreed to a 10-year extension with the head coach Tuesday. The school announced the deal will pay Franklin $8.5 million per year, according to Stuart Mandel of The Athletic. Franklin's buyout, if he leaves this year, is reportedly set at $12 million per Mandel. It drops to $8 million and $6 million in 2022 and 2023, respectively. Penn State's future is bright, and I'm honored to continue to serve as your head football coach, said Franklin, who's now signed through 2031. 9 weeks ago, the administration approached me about making a long-term investment in our football program. This promoted numerous conversations outlining the resources needed to be competitive at a level that matches the expectations and history of Penn State. This renewed commitment to our student athletes, community, and fans reinforces all the reasons I've been proud to serve as your head football coach for the last 8 years, and why my commitment to Penn State remains steadfast. Franklin, in his 8th season at Penn State, posting a 67-32 record overall with the team. However, he's only 11-9 dating back to last season. The 49-year-old was rumored to be a potential candidate for multiple college programs looking for a new head coach, including LSU and USC, to name. Franklin previously went 24 for 15 at Vanderbilt from 2011 until the year 2013. More college news to go over. Mel Tucker and Michigan State Spartans agree on a massive 10-year, $95 million contract extension. Michigan State is expected to finalize a new contract for Tucker on Wednesday night. Tucker later confirmed the news by releasing a statement. The Detroit Free Press previously reported that MSU was working on a 10-year, $95 million contract to keep Tucker in East Lansing. In his second season in East Lansing, Tucker has led the Spartans to a quick turnaround following the departure of longtime head coach Mark D'Antonio. Michigan State currently number 12 in the college football rankings and has a 9-2 record entering Saturday's regular season finale against Penn State. As a result of the work he has done at MSU, Tucker's name has been floated around as a possible candidate for several of the open jobs in college football. That includes LSU. Tucker spent several years as an SEC assistant, including as the defensive backs coach for Nick Saban at Alabama and multiple seasons as the defensive coordinator at Georgia. He also spent time as a defensive assistant in the NFL. Alright, let's move on to the NFL. NFL Week 12 upcoming this week is the Patriots versus the Tennessee Titans injury report. The New England Patriots 7-4 and the Tennessee Titans 8-3 announced the following players' injuries and practice participation. New England Patriots did not participate, and here are the players that did not. Defensive line Christian Barmore with a knee, and offensive tackle Trent Brown with a calf injury. Here are the limited availabilities. Punter Jake Bailey with the right knee, linebacker J. Juan Bentley with the ribs, kicker Nick Folk with left knee, running back Damian Harris with the neck, tight end Hunter Henry with neck, linebacker Deontay Hightower with ankle, guard Shaq Mason with abdomen, tight end Jonnu Smith with the shoulder, running back Rondamere Stevenson with the knee, and linebacker Kyle Van Noy with the groin. full availability, no players were listed. Here are the Tennessee Titans full report. Did not participate. Offensive linebacker Ole Ndiaye with an hamstring. Wide receiver A.J. Brown with the chest. Guard Nate Davis with a concussion. Linebacker Rasheed Evans with an ankle. Linebacker David Long with a hamstring. Running back Jeremy McNichols. Running back Jeremy McNichols with a concussion. Tight end Geoff Swam with concussion. And Terry Tart with an ankle. Defensive line. Limited availability was linebacker Jayan Brown with the quad. Running back Deontay Foreman with the tricep. Cornerback Jack Rabbit Jenkins with chest. Cornerback Greg Mabin with an ankle. And guard Roger Seyfold with back. Defensive line Naquan Jones with illness. And offensive linebacker Harold Landry with hamstring. The full availability for the Tennessee Titans was tight end Geoff Swam with concussion. Next up is fresh MLB news. MLB and the MLBPA agree to move tender deadline up to November 30th. Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Players Association have agreed to move this year's deadline for teams to tender contracts to arbitration-eligible players up from December 2nd to November 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The decision moves the tender deadline before the expiration of the current collective bargaining agreement, which is scheduled to happen again at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 1st. If a new agreement is not reached within the next 8 days, it's generally expected that the league would institute a lockout and subsequent transaction freeze. The MLBPA recently put together a 36-page document outlining the potential parameters. Outlining the potential perimeters of a lockout for players and their representatives, leaving the tender deadline on December 2nd. Would have left arbitration-eligible players in a state of limbo over the course of a potential transactions freeze. Many could have been left with uncertainty about whether their current clubs intended to bring them back next season while awaiting a bargaining process that could take weeks or months to resolve. Against the backdrop, the final few hours of the current CBA could present a hectic time for teams eager to finalize moves before the potential transaction freeze. Certain players, meanwhile, might feel pressure to sign contracts for 2022 rather than risk having to linger in free agency over the course of a lockout and face a potential rushed free agent period where the CBA negotiations to linger near or into next year's spring training. By forcing teams to make the final call on the arbitration-eligible players early, some non-tendered options could look to catch on with a new club on December 1st and avoid that uncertainty altogether. Here's the number one reason for every team to be thankful. It's Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a great holiday. But that's lessened a little bit because it does actually feature any baseball. And the best part about it is that it's a day specifically set aside to reflect on what we are thankful for, what we have in our lives that matters, what we're grateful to have. It's nice that way. There should be more days like that. So today, at the 30, it's that old Thanksgiving chestnut. A look at what each of the 30 MLB teams has to be thankful for. Maybe it's a player. Maybe it's a concept. Maybe it's a mood. Maybe it's just a vibe. But they've got things to be grateful for. They can give thanks. American League East. Blue Jays. They get to spend all of 2022 at home. It has been since 2019. a really long time ago now that the young, exciting Blue Jays have gone to play all 81 of their home games in Toronto, which is, the city they're supposed to play in. In 2022, home will be home again. The Baltimore Oilers' Adley Rutschman is almost here. The anticipation has lasted longer than some Oilers fans might have wanted, but their feminine catcher is surely arriving in 2022. By all counts, he's worth the wait. Rays, they've just won 100 games for the first time in team history. For all the Rays talk this year, this fact was sort of glossed over. Tampa Bay just had the best regular season in its history. That's a good place to start, yes? Red Sox, Chris Sale will finally be back at full strength next year. We saw a glimpse of the old Sale at points in 2021. But he will be as rested as a pitcher he can get next year. The New York Yankees, well, they are still very good and poised to improve. The Yankees haven't reached the World Series since 2009. And there are clear holes on the team and also some stars. This is a good free agent class, and the path to improvement is there via a free agency. The Yanks know how to make that formula work. The American League Central, Guardians, the new name is here, and a new era has dawned. And with that comes excitement and the possibility of a real renewal. The Royals, Salvi is still here. Salvador Perez somehow seems to keep improving as a hitter, and he has secured his spot as an all-time Royals legend and one of the best players in sports. Tigers, the wait is over. No one is sure exactly which moves the Detroit Tigers will make this offseason, but they're clearly making some moves. They're already signed Eduardo Rodriguez, building off a 2021 season that at last showed some real signs of a breakthrough. Twins, 2021 is over. This might sound like a dark thing to be thankful for, but then you remember what 2021 was really like for the Minnesota Twins. The Chicago White Sox, the winning culture is finally installed. The White Sox were too young to win. Then they didn't know how to win. Now they breathed into the postseason. Time for the next step. Postseason success. It's actually been a logical progression so far, all told. American League West, the Los Angeles Angels, Mike Trout, and Shohei Ohtani play for this team. The Angels obviously need a lot of pitching, but geez, if you can't be grateful for having these two guys on the team, what can you be grateful for? The Houston Astros, they have more proof of dominance. They'll never silence the haters. But with their 2021 World Series appearance, the Astros have moved another year away from the sign-stealing scandal. And another year in which they look, as always, like one of the best teams in baseball. The Oakland A's, any rebuilding period will be brief. The A's appear to be setting up for a bit of a retooling period. But most teams have a down half decade when they rebuild. Oakland never takes that long. Mariners, the streak is about to end. Maybe it's in 2022. Maybe it's a year after that. But the Mariners are building something. It's about to come to fruition. Seattle fans have been waiting since 2001, folks, for a return to the postseason, and their patience is about to pay off. The Texas Rangers, some new faces are coming. The Rangers need a reason to get their fans excited, and there are rumors they're willing to spend this year. They have plenty of options to choose from. The National League East, the Atlanta Braves, well, they've won the World Series. Did you miss this? I hope not. It was very exciting. The Braves won the World Series. The Marlins, so much young pitching. The Marlins may have the best rotation in the National League East, and they go 6 or 7 deep with young pitchers. The offense needs help, but this is a great place to start. New York Mets, they have a leader now. It took a longer than anyone would have liked. But the Mets have a new general manager in Billy Epler and a clear direction. It may not be much, but it's better than they were before. The Washington Nationals, Juan Soto. The Nets have a lot of other things to figure out. But they have Juan Soto, and that's multiple that's multiple must-watch at-bats every game. Philadelphia Phillies, Bryce Harper. The Phillies have a lot of other things to figure out, but they have Bryce Harper, and that's multiple must-watch at-bats every game. National League Central, the Milwaukee Brewers. This is the best sustained era in franchise history. We'll see if they end up getting that elusive World Series title. But it wasn't that long ago that the Brewers were going multiple decades without reaching the postseason. Now we all expect to see them there every year. The Cardinals, that defense. Defense never slumps, so they say. And when you've gotten a whopping 5 Gold Glove, when you've got a whopping 5 Gold Glovers, that's a terrific thing to build a team around. The Chicago Cubs, Wrigley is eternal. The team is retooling, but this is still the best place in the world to go see a baseball game, or just to walk outside on a cold autumn Chicago night. Pittsburgh Pirates, Brian Hayes is healthy. A wrist injury derailed what should have been his first full season, but he showed in his 2020 chemo that he can be the franchise cornerstone that Pittsburgh needs. Cincinnati Reds, Joey Votto. The Reds are in a period of transition, but the eternal delight that is Joey Votto is still here. And what a gift that is for the rest of us. National League West, the Diamondbacks, things will get better. Sometimes you have a year when nothing seems to go right. The 2021 season, 110 losses, was like that for Arizona. But this team has a recent history of defying preseason expectations, and there is nowhere to go but up. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they can win 106 games and still feel like a disappointment. That's a pretty great place to be at as a franchise, to put together a historically great season and still bum out your fans. San Francisco Giants, the glory that was the 2021 season. The National League Division Series loss to the Dodgers, specifically the way it ended, was an undeniable bummer. But seasons in which you win 107 games when even the most optimistic prognosticators had you winning 20 or fewer than that are incredibly special. This team has earned the fans' trust. San Diego Padres, there are still stars everywhere. The Padres were a huge disappointment in 2021, but they're still packed to the gills with talent, starting of course with Fernando Tatis Jr., who is still a transcendent superstar. They're going to be just fine. The Colorado Rockies, a fantastic fan base. The Rockies ended up as a top 10 attendance team in 2021. Despite a sub 500 record, someday this team is going to win a lot. And when it does, Rocks fans will be able to say they were there the whole time. Let's quickly move over to some NBA news. The two fans were subsequently ejected, though they continued to mock James as they left the floor. In other news, a crypto group is trying to buy an NBA team via crowdfunding. Decentralized Autonomous Organization, DAO, based on cryptocurrency Ethereum, is gearing up to buy a National Basketball Association team through crowdfunding. Krause House DOA, named after the late general manager of the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Krause, who raised 200 Ethereum ETH, or roughly Rs 6.4 crore in just 15 minutes of announcing the plan to buy an NBA team. Reported Decrypt.co, the organization is currently sitting atop 475 ETH, which amounts to more than Rs 15 crore. The DAO, formed earlier this May, began its funding drive by selling NFTs a week ago. The NFTs that the DAO is selling are metamorphical tickets and provide the owner with access to the Discord events and their servers. Krause House launched its sale through a platform called Mirror and met their initial cap of 200 ETH in just 15 minutes. The next hard cap the DAO has put is at 1,000 ETH, or roughly Rs 32 crore. The funding is being spread across the internet under the project WAGBAT, which elaborates to "We are going to buy a team." Strange world we live in. Coming up next is NHL news. Why the NHL standings at US Thanksgiving have huge playoff implications. Here isn't a foolproof way to predict roughly the quarter mark of the season, which teams will end up qualifying for the Stanley Cup playoffs. However, daunting the standings at US Thanksgiving gives us a solid framework for understanding which teams are positioned well and which others need to pick up the pace throughout the winter months. Since last season was unconventional on several levels, realigned divisions, limited opponents on a repetitive schedule, and a regular season that didn't begin until January, there isn't necessarily an abundance of data from 2020-2021 we can apply to the current NHL campaign. Looking back at previous seasons, though, we can begin to get a clearer picture of how the 2022 postseason brackets might shape up. From the 2023-2014 season to 2017-2018, a whopping 62 of 80 of the teams in a playoff spot at US Thanksgiving wound up qualifying for a playoff spot. That works out to 77.5%, which is significant. And it's also in line with trends during full seasons in the salary cap era, regardless of the divisional alignment. The most recent time we had the similar divisional alignment at US Thanksgiving was back in 2019, during the 2019-2020 regular season. That was cut short by anywhere from 11 to 14 games. No team played more than 71 games and none fewer than 68, after COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic. Due to the circumstances surrounding the suspension of the regular season, an expanded playoff format was agreed upon, with 12 teams from each conference afforded an opportunity to compete in a postseason. The top 4 teams in each conference were given a bye into the first official playoff round, while teams ranked 5 to 12 competed in the best of 5 series. Below, you'll be able to compare the current standings to the 2019-2020 standings at this time 2 years ago. Keep in mind, the 2021-2022 season began towards the end of the second week of October. when usually regular season action gets underway early in the first week, which explains this year's lower point totals. Atlantic Division standings at U.S. Thanksgiving in 2020, the Atlantic Division standings at U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019 and 2020, Boston was 17-3 and 5, 39 points. Florida, 12-8 and 5, 29 points. Toronto, 12-10 and 4, 28 points. Metropolitan Division standings at U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019-2020, Washington, 17-4 and 5 and 39 points. The New York Islanders, 16-5 and 2, 34 points. Pittsburgh Penguins were 14-7 and 4, 32 points. Wild card race at U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019 and 2020. Carolina 15-9 and 1, 31 points. Philadelphia Flyers were 13-7 and 5 and 31 points. Montreal 11-8 and 5, 27 points. Tampa Bay Lightning 12-8 and 2, 26 points. The New York Rangers were 12-9 and 2 with 26 points. And CBJ, the Blue Jackets, they were 10-10 and 4. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 10-10 and 4 with 24 points. In 2019-2020, Boston maintained its spot atop the Atlantic and won the President's Trophy as the only team to reach 100 points that season. The Panthers and the Islanders both went from second place at Thanksgiving to much more tenacious positions. The Islanders were 1 point back of the East's second wildcard spot at the 2020 pause, with 2 games in hand, while the Panthers were 3 points out of playoff spot. Because of the unique bubble perimeters, the two teams played against each other in 2020's additional qualifying round, with the Islanders coming out on top. Columbus was trailing by 7 points in the wildcard race at Thanksgiving, yet wound up holding the second wildcard spot at the pause and pulled off a qualifying round upset over Toronto. Buffalo, New Jersey, Ottawa, and Detroit were all well on the outside looking in when the mashed potatoes and gravy were passed around the table and each had an early start to the offseason. Central Division standings, U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019-2020, St. Louis 15-5 and 6 on 36 points. Dallas 15-9 and 2 with 32 points. The Dallas Stars. Winnipeg were 15-9 and 1 with 31 points. And then you go on to the Pacific Division standings at the U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019-2020. Edmonton was 16-8 and 3 with 35 points. Arizona were 15-8 and 3 with 33 points. And VAN were 12-10 and 4 with 28 points. The wild card race at the U.S. Thanksgiving in 2019-2020, Colorado was 14-8 and 2 with 30 points. VAN again were 12-10 and 4 with 28 points. VGK, they were 12-11 and 4 with 28 points. CGY were 12-12 and 4 with 28 points. And CJS were 13-12 and 1 with 27 points. So Vegas and Colorado were wildcard contenders at Thanksgiving in 2019, yet finished with the second and third best records in the West when the season was paused. The Oilers and the Coyotes couldn't maintain their strong starts. Edmonton failed to secure a bye and sat behind Vegas at the pause, while the Coyotes were 4 points out of the wild card when the season came to a halt in March. Both were eliminated in the qualifying round. The Sharks were above 500 and 1 point behind Vancouver at Thanksgiving. But all 3 California-based teams fell out of the race and didn't even qualify for the expanded playoffs. Overall, when you take all of the above into consideration, teams like Carolina and Florida should feel confident about their positions this season. Have Ottawa, Montreal, and the Islanders dug themselves too deep a hole to dig out of come playoff time?
it's too early to worry about a team like the Bruins and Stars, and heck, even Detroit and New Jersey shouldn't be written out of the playoff race. Seattle, Kraken, and Coyotes fans probably shouldn't love their postseason chances. Unlike fans in Alberta, where Calgary and Edmonton led the Pacific, on average, roughly 3 teams that are outside of the playoff picture on American Thanksgiving end, up qualifying by the end of the season. Who are the teams best situated to make the climb in 2021-2022? That is all for this week. I will see you on Sunday's podcast. Till then, hit the like button and subscribe to Weekly Informer, your host, Joey Hadid, for all the sports updates and your worldwide sport updates, your podcast, your news, your local community. Again, this is Joseph Hadid, Worldwide Sport Updates, your podcast, your news, your local community, and I'll see you around.